Okay, hello everybody, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to what is our usual weekly live session here in the One Step Outside group. So we meet more or less every Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock UK time, GMT. So we'll have to calculate what that is in your different time zones. I'm hoping the network here is going to be okay. Apologies, I've had some Wi-Fi issues today, so I can only say sorry in advance in case it cuts off. Fingers crossed. And we won't drag on for too long tonight. So we have been quite busy in the last few weeks. We had the Client Generation Bootcamp, 5 nights of live training sessions all around identifying your core ideal client, your branding proposition, your elevator pitch, getting going with your marketing and so on. And then we kicked off the Fast Track Your Business in 90 Days program, which started actually this week. Now, before we kick off our new series, which is going to be revealed in a second, I want to of course welcome the new members to the group. I've seen quite a few of you joining recently, so thanks so much for becoming part of the One Step Outside community. I really hope you find what you're looking for, and in order to help you do that, I'd love to hear from you and what your goals are, what you're working on in your business at the moment, and where I might be able to support you. Hopefully you'll have met Jamila and Cara along the way, and they're supporting me now in the One Step Outside team, so you'll be getting to know them as well over the coming weeks and months. But a massive welcome to you all, and of course welcome back to all my existing community members. I know we had an intense period again with those live sessions a few weeks ago, so hopefully we've all had a bit of a break and we're all ready to get back into it. So do say hello when you're joining so I know who's watching. But again, welcome to everybody. My name is Anna Lundberg. I'm the founder of One Step Outside, which I like to say this now and again. It comes from the quote, everything you've ever wanted is one step outside your comfort zone. So it's really a big idea around growth, around challenging ourselves, around taking action. And of course, I also talk about reimagining success. I'm the author of the book, Leaving the Corporate 9 to 5, as well as host now of the Reimagining Success podcast. But as promised, this month, we're kicking off a new topic, a new series, and it's all going to be around personal branding. Hey Steve, perfect timing. We were just talking about personal branding a couple of hours ago, so really good to see you, Steve. So as I was saying, we're kicking off this new series, and personal branding is something that I've written about in the past. It's certainly become more and more important to me. Last year, I really stepped things up, as you may have noticed, with my various videos and articles, how I position myself and so on. And as Steve and I were just talking a couple of hours ago, it's a really critical piece of presenting who we are. Now that's true whether we're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a freelancer, or even a lowly employee, so we'll look at that in a moment. But just to introduce the topic, so this week we're going to be looking at why personal branding, why is it important, why is it something we should even pay attention to. Then we're going to be continuing every week, so we've got the live here in the Facebook group every Wednesday evening. Mondays we'll have video on IGTV if you're over on Instagram, also on LinkedIn if that's your preferred channel. Tuesdays we have the blog post, and Thursday there's a new podcast episode. So over the next few weeks you'll be getting plenty of content, any format or channel that you'd like to follow that suits you. So podcasts I think are great, if you're on the go, but you can do more of a deep dive with me here in the live as well, or you can read in your own time the blog, so hopefully plenty of choice for you. So this week why it's important. Next week, importantly, how you can then, if you're convinced that you want to build your personal brand, how you can go about finding your story and crafting that. Because before you can tell your story, you need to know what that story is. So we're going to look at sort of the different building blocks, thinking about the elements that will make up your story. And there will be quite a personal element there, your overall sort of values and mission on the one hand, but also, of course, because we're thinking about this in the context of our professional life, of our career, there's also going to be an element of thinking of business and results and what value you can bring to a company or to your audience. After that, we're looking at getting comfortable with selling. We did talk about this a couple of weeks ago in the Client Generation Bootcamp, but it can feel quite uncomfortable selling ourselves, essentially. Certainly as an employee, we never had to do that so much. We had a manager, we had a sales team and so on. When we set out on our own, or even in a job interview, if we're changing career, changing company, we need to be able to sell ourselves and to get comfortable with this idea of personal branding. So there's a bit of a mindset piece and just practicing and getting more at ease with the whole idea. After After that, we'll be looking at actually auditing our personal brand online, seeing where we are today, and then I won't keep going, but there'll be plenty more weeks around how we can then go about optimizing our different profiles, cleaning up our brand online, because we are focusing on online. Of course, it matters also in person and real life. So plenty of content over the next few weeks. Hopefully it's an important topic that you guys will recognise as important, if nothing else, after tonight's session, because that's what we're talking about. And then plenty of concrete tips and ideas over the next few weeks. So let's start with the topic for tonight. Why is it important? And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, just as an aside, that I was watching Vikings on Amazon Prime. It's my Scandinavian route, so I love watching it. And it's very fitting because the word branding comes from the Norse brandr, which feels very appropriate. So it does actually come from the idea of branding your livestock, of actually putting your mark onto cattle and so on. And usually when we think of branding, that's what we think about. I'm sure you can name, and if you're watching live or watching the replay, throw out some brands that you can think of. I immediately think of Nike and the swoosh, McDonald's, the golden arches, Starbucks and the mermaids, Coca-Cola, of course, the red lettering, the Apple logo with the bite taken out of it, Disney. There are so many very recognisable logos, and that's probably what we think about when we first think of branding, which makes sense and which is where it initially came from. However, branding is so much more than that logo. The reason why we associate that swoosh, the Puma cat, the Apple logo with those brands is because those companies have been around for a while. They have been branding themselves, building, marketing their products and services and so on, building a reputation, and they've actually now built an understanding. In fact, many of those brands used to have the name. A lot of the sports brands had this, Puma, Nike and so on, used to have both the name of the brand and the sign, the swoosh, but that became almost redundant as they became so familiar to us. But that's because they're well established, they've had decades to do that. And again, the brand that we think of when we see the swoosh is not just, the logo, it's not just the tick sign, it's the just do it, it's the amazing celebrities they have, it's this idea of all of us being athletes and getting fitter and stronger and looking good while we're doing all those things. So, the logo is really not the brand, it's what the logo represents as the brand. And so I think a lot of us will, first of all, associate branding with just the logo, but secondly, I think understand the importance of branding when it comes to a company and a business. I think that's pretty sort of self-explanatory. However, it may be less obvious when we're talking about personal branding. And I know, again, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago in the Kind Generation Bootcamp. A lot of us have been, maybe when we're first starting out, getting clients via word of mouth, via referrals and so on. We don't like pushing our services. We like the idea that other people are just hearing about our amazing services and coming to us. And what's interesting with that is, although you think it's uncomfortable to consider yourself as a personal brand, this whole thing, I got excited. The whole point, the fact that people are coming to you, means that you have a personal brand, whether you like it or not. So it's really down to you if you want to manage that actively, to actually think about what that personal brand is. Is it in line with the story you want to tell? Is it serving your goals and so on? Or is it completely disconnected? It's actually a very different image to the image you want to portray. Now, when I talk about branding and when I talk about portraying an image, I'm not talking about faking it. I'm not talking about creating this, new persona that has nothing to do with who you are, pretending to be someone you're not, lying, projecting this, glamorous, perfect image. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about lying or faking. Obviously, it's up to you where you draw the line. What we're talking about is presenting your best self, being authentic. I know it's an overused word, but it's about being you, being a genuine human being. And that is what people like these days. There are, different audiences. Some will prefer the perfect luxury image, no imperfections, no sort of, no ripped nails, whatever it is, no poor lighting or bad Wi-Fi, whatever it is. Most people now value genuine connections, and they'll trust you, they'll appreciate what you do, they'll become, empathize with you, relate to you much more when you're yourself, when you're being genuine, when you're being authentic. And the example I gave, I think recently, was, in a relationship or actually dating. When I was younger, probably I wanted to be sort of cool and play along with whatever hot guy was there, and think, I like this kind of music, and oh yeah, I don't mind that you're smoking, or whatever it was. What you realise when you're older, hopefully, is that there's no point in pretending to be someone you're not. Because if that man falls in love with you, and this persona you've projected, you're going to either have to continue to project that persona the rest of your life, which is not fun, or you're going to probably break up with that person eventually when you realise you're actually not compatible at all. So there's really no point in faking it. Likewise with your clients when you have your own business. There's no point in me pretending that I'm this, I don't even know, but whatever I'm not, whatever you think I'm not, pretending to be this completely other person, if that's not who I am. Because if I attract that certain type of client, they'll come to me, they'll inevitably be disappointed because I'm not actually living up to the persona that I projected, and I'll have that disconnect again. So again, it's not about faking it, it's not about trying to lie or manipulate people. So I hope that helps to reframe your mindset, that it's not about sort of lying or doing anything that's unethical. It's really just about sort of moulding, shaping that perception. And again, you have a personal brand whether you think you do or care or have ever paid attention to it or not. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. It's the presence that you have online in particular. Even if you don't know, it's what people find when they Google you. It's what they find when they look at your social profiles. It's what they see when they meet you in person. Unfortunately, a little bit looks based. Based on what you're wearing, how well presented you are, your tone of voice, your behaviour, body language, and so on. So you have a personal brand, whether you realise it or not. So it's really up to you. Do you want to manage it actively or not? And just to talk about a few of those scenarios that I mentioned at the beginning. So as a business owner, of course there are different statistics around this, but I read something that was interesting, that was 1 in 3 people will trust the message that comes from a brand. 1 in 3? Not great, probably less in fact, depending on the era. And we begin to distrust companies perhaps, and certainly big corporations, there's ethical issues and so on. However, 90% of people trust someone who they know. And I'm not saying that we can all get to know every single person online. There's 500 plus people in this group. I can't unfortunately get to know each of you personally, although I'd love to. What I can do is show up, be myself, add value, write things, do videos, engage with you guys, message you, talk to you, listen, have calls with you, and so on, so that you can get a feel for who I am, what I do, the value perhaps that I can bring to you, and how we might work together, and so on. So as you begin to get to know me, then you may or may not decide to want to work with me, for example. But that trust piece is really important. So rather than me being this corporation, this corporate structure, the one step outside brand with, perfectly curated images and no person behind it, it's actually really me. In particular, if you're in a service-based industry, you're a consultant, a coach, or even a practitioner of some sort, you are your business. So there's a very fine line, blurred boundary, I suppose, between the personal brand and the business brand. People are going to be working with you. They're going to be hopefully benefiting from you, what you do, your skills, your strengths, your credibility. And so that's what you then want to mould and get across so that people can actually see, get to know and understand what it is they can expect to get from you once they get to know you. So as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, whatever you want to call yourself, I hope you can see the value. People buy from businesses these days. They want to see the raw, genuine, real person behind it. They want to really get to grips with your mission, your values. Why should they even care about buying from you rather than any other business coach or shiatsu practitioner or copywriter or whatever it is that you provide? So as a business owner, I hope we can all agree that that personal brand is super important. Now, some of you might not associate with the label of business owner. So if you're a freelancer, we talked to a lot of freelancers, I really think you should think of yourself as a business owner. But nonetheless, as a freelancer, if you're working project by project basis, you want your clients to be coming to you. And as I hinted at the beginning of the evening, that means that you have a personal brand. And you need to manage that to make sure that people hear about, like, oh my goodness, I heard that Steve is the go-to person for consulting new startups that do X, Y, Z. Or when I worked with Steve, he did this and he really showed up and did X, Y, and so on. And that's what you want. So that's the personal brand that people are talking about again, whether you realise it or not. So you want more of that, basically. You want people to come to you because they've heard how amazing you are. Importantly, you want them to come to you for specific reasons. And what I hear from a lot of freelancers and business owners as well, starting out, is that you may have people coming to you, but because they're coming to you, you're not seeking them out. You actually don't have any control or choice over who is coming and asking you to work with them. So as appealing and desirable it sounds to have clients coming to you, it may be that they're not the right clients for you. In particular, they'll probably be coming to you based on your past experience. So for me, I talk about, I was working in luxury and beauty and so on, and every recruiter, every company, every manager who wanted to hire a digital marketing specialist at the time would come to me using that luxury beauty background, digital marketing and so on. I, however, was trying to move in a different direction, but nobody knew that at the time. I hadn't crafted my brand, my story around coaching, around reimagining success, around career choices, around balancing across the different areas of your life, leaving the corporate 9 to 5 and so on. So that's taken time to sort of turn the massive ship around and lead it in a new direction. But what happens is if you're not actually proactively managing your brand, people are coming to you for your past rather than your future. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So again, as freelancers, you want people to be coming to you for the right reasons, for the right types of projects, and you want people to be talking about you and saying how amazing you are. So personal brand is important for you all as well. And especially as a freelancer working by yourself, you are your brand, you are your business, you are your services. So again, personal brand is absolutely key. And then finally, as an employee, because we don't want to forget about you guys either, again, as an employee, we haven't necessarily been used to personal branding or even branding ourselves. We have the benefit of having that massive company behind us. For me, I had Procter & Gamble, this big corporation around for decades, this massive heritage. I also worked on big name brands that, of course, had years of success stories as well. So when I was launching a new project or initiative or product, I had all of that to lean on. And I only had to sort of add some incremental value, tweak a bit of a design and so on, and that was all I had to do. I had a sales team managing sales. I had, PR doing all of that, and I did my little marketing branding bit. In terms of your individual personal brand in the company, hopefully your manager, your boss, is doing that for you as well. So talking you up in management meetings and giving you good ratings and reviews, whatever it is that you have within your organisation, your annual 360 report and so on, and putting you forward for promotions and salary increases. However, even in that context, even though it's not something that comes naturally and that you've thought about before, I happen to believe that it's incredibly important for you to do that as an employee as well. And as I experienced during my time in the corporate world, again, if you want to move into a particular direction, if you want to have ownership over the direction in which your career goes, you need to be thinking about who you're talking to, where you're getting exposure, what your image is, and your criteria for moving forwards, rather than just letting your manager or your team or whatever push you into roles and move you about. They may not be supporting you as much as you'd like to be supported, and it's important then that you manage that proactively. Just as much as you own your training and your development and thinking about your big vision for your career, you also need to be thinking about the personal brand you're projecting within the organisation. And that might mean making sure that you get exposure to different management levels, to different functions, different parts of the organisation and so on. That's important if you want promotions, it's important if you want salary increases, it's important if you want to change company. If you're trying to apply to a new company or get into a new company, they don't know you personally. So again, if you want them to trust you and to want to work with you, you need to find a way to network, to sort of build your brand within that new organisation. Or perhaps you've been able to build a strong personal brand online and they will have seen you and heard of you, even though you don't yet work at that company. It's especially true if you want to change industry or change career entirely. Again, you need to think about, how am I going to begin to make myself known in this new area? The good news is, with online and so on now, we actually have a lot more avenues and possibilities to do this. It's no longer just about the CV, who we know, the formal application process, which, to be honest, is very difficult to sort of gain. There's 200-300 people applying to a particular job. It's hard then to get past that, especially when you have an unusual CV perhaps, and not the exact background. However, if you've been showing up consistently on LinkedIn and writing amazing content about your, the trends of digital transformation in your industry, or the new technologies that exist in medicine, or new techniques and ways to use shiatsu to help and so on, that then builds a name for you. It's a platform that you can both use proactively yourself to push out into the world, and also people will come to that. You can point them in the direction of that and they will get a better understanding for who you are, and you have that identity. So especially probably for an employee, try not to think of yourself as sort of a safe employee in this company. This is my business card. I am a social media manager. That's me. Your personal brand lives on far beyond just that business card, just that role. And by the way, this is true for all of those categories. You happen to be freelancing now, you happen to have a business right now, those are not going to last. As much as I love One Step Outside, it's very likely, if not definitely going to be the case, that it will evolve, pivot, and maybe even, sadly, have to sort of take a step back as the business becomes something else in a few years' time. Who knows? Probably it won't be around certainly in this form in 10, 20, 30 years. However, hopefully, knock on wood, Anna Lundberg will. So it's important for me to have my personal brand, an idea of who I am, what I stand for, both for my own sake, so that I can direct, again, move towards my definition of success, but also for that to live beyond and endure, even if a particular business fails. And the example I use is massive, but Richard Branson. Richard Branson as a personality, and probably the biggest personality that comes to mind when you talk personal branding, is so much bigger than each of his Virgin franchises, is that what you call them? Little sub companies, as we call them. And, you know, I had a look at Twitter, for example. He's got 12, 13 million followers on Twitter. His companies have a few 100,000. So he's massive. Everyone's heard of Richard Branson, above and beyond the specifics of Virgin Money, Virgin Media, you know, music, flights not going so well maybe, but Richard Branson lives on and succeeds. So again, that's something to think about. Whether you are made redundant, or your business fails, or you decide to leave your business or your company, you change career, whatever it is, you as an individual are still there. So it's just a good way to think about it, reframe it all. It's not about, you know, these things in isolation. It's, again, weaving together all your experiences, your skills, your interests. Sometimes we keep things really sort of isolated in silos, really separate. You know, oh, I like yoga and photography over here, and this is my role as a marketing manager over here. And actually, especially when you're building and crafting your brand, your own business in particular, bringing those perhaps strange combinations of skills and passions together, it's what's going to make you unique, stand out against a very cluttered market, and that is your personal brand. So lots of ideas I've thrown out at you this week. I think I'll leave it there so as not to overwhelm you, but I hope this evening has at least begun to set the stage for why personal branding is important, what it is. It's not something too uncomfortable or scary. It's being yourself, really. It's just curating, I guess is a good word, the image, the perception, the story. I love the idea of the story, the narrative that you want to bring to life. And then, of course, as I said, the next few weeks we'll be looking at how you can find that story, how you can get comfortable with sharing the story and not feeling like, you know, you're selling yourself or being all sleazy or whatever it is. And then specifically, more concretely, how that translates into your different social channels, into your online presence and so on. But I'm excited about this topic. I think it's so important. Personal branding, again, I've been stepping things up this last year. I can't tell you the difference it's made. I love it. I like these sessions when I show up and talking to you guys. I am being myself. I hope the people who know me know that this is me, and those of you who are in my individual group coaching programs, you know, I am as I show myself to be. So hopefully that's sort of a good indication that you don't have to project one image and then be something completely different. So that's it for this week. Thanks so much for joining live, and if you're watching the replay, of course, as ever, you can comment below, send in your questions and so on. There will be the podcast episode coming out tomorrow. If you want to dig a bit deeper, I'll be talking similar things that I was talking today, but it's always good to get these messages sort of in different ways to immerse ourselves. And next week, as promised, we'll be looking at how you can begin to craft that story, weave together your skills, your strengths, your experiences, your bigger picture mission, definition of success, of course. And then, as I said, that will evolve over the next few weeks. So first week on the personal branding series. Thanks so much for joining. I hope you'll follow along over the next few weeks. And I believe, I can almost guarantee that in the next month or so, you'll have a much clearer picture of what personal branding is, what your personal branding is, and you will have taken some big steps towards actually refining that image, implementing that online as well. So thanks again for joining. Have a lovely evening, and I will see you back here very soon. Bye for now.